Welcome to the debate. When a structural engineer looks at a collapsed building, they don't immediately declare to the public why it fell.
Right. They cordon off the site first.
Exactly. They coordinate off, they collect steel samples, they test for stress fractures, and they do this because guessing the cause of a catastrophe before testing the evidence, well, it doesn't just mislead the public, it can actually compromise the entire investigation.
Yeah. But what happens when the collapse isn't a building? What if it's the violent, sudden death of a 23-year-old mother? The community they refuse to wait behind the police tape.
Which is completely understandable on a human level. But that brings us directly to the heart of what we're examining today. The tragic death of 23-year-old Chyna Hickman in Mobile, Alabama, has really surfaced this very modern, very critical tension.
Yeah, it's a direct collision, really, between these rapid, viral social media narratives and the necessarily slow, methodical pace of official law enforcement communications.
Right. And I'll be arguing that relying strictly on verified police statements is absolutely essential in these moments. Because when we allow viral rumors, specifically, unverified claims about a suspect's motives to dominate the conversation, we actively hinder criminal investigations. We distort the truth.
And, well, my perspective is that while these citizen-driven social media narratives absolutely contain unconfirmed details, I won't deny that, they serve a vital, irreplaceable function.
Even with the misinformation.
Yes, because they act as a mechanism for community sense-making. I mean, they humanize victims in ways that clinical police blotters just do not. And crucially, they keep these cases visible, generating the kind of public pressure that actually demands accountability.
Well, let's start by looking at the verified foundation of this case. Because any pursuit of justice, it has to be anchored in reality.
Fair enough.
Here's what we know for a fact, confirmed by authorities. On Friday, July 10, 2026, the Mobile Police Department responded to the 1000 block of Anders Drive. They found 23-year-old Chyna Hickman fatally shot.
Right.
And the very next day, July 11th, they arrested 29-year-old Kendrea Davis and charged her with murder. Now, the police made it crystal clear this is an active investigation and they have not, explicitly not, released any information regarding a motive.
They kept it locked down.
Completely. Yet if you scroll through the social media discourse surrounding this tragedy, you are immediately hit with these rampant, capitalized claims that Hickman was, quote, killed over lashes, or that she was allegedly pregnant.
Yeah, I've seen those posts.
Right, and these posts represent a massive leap away from the facts. When we allow that kind of digital noise to drown out the facts before law enforcement can conclude their work, we just bury the actual mechanics of justice under an avalanche of speculation.
I'll admit, when you stack the timeline up like that, the social media response sounds completely chaotic. But we have to look at the gaps those official police statements leave behind.
What gaps? They gave the date, the location, the arrest record.
Yes, they provided the logistical facts, but read the actual text of that official report. It is overwhelmingly clinical. It refers to a young woman's violent death merely as an incident and an ongoing legal matter.
Well, it's a legal document.
Right, but it entirely strips away the humanity of what occurred on Anders Drive. The viral social media post, despite its speculative elements, does something the police report fundamentally fails to do, which is center the human cost.
By making up a motive?
By telling the public that a 23-year-old mother is gone, leaving behind 2 young children who now have to grow up without her. That context matters.
I don't disagree that the police report is clinical. Like I said, it's designed to be. It is a legal document. It is not a eulogy.
But that is exactly where the community steps in. By utilizing hashtags like, Justice for Chyna Hickman, Say Her Name, Stop Killing Black Women, the community is building a decentralized archive.
I hear that, but
They are connecting this single isolated event to a broader societal pain. This isn't just idle gossip. It is a marginalized community demanding accountability and refusing to let a victim become just another statistic filed away in a precinct cabinet.
The instinct to protect a victim's memory is incredibly powerful. I completely validate that. But we have to analyze how that public outcry is being generated and the specific algorithms it relies on to gain traction.
Okay, but
Look at the language used in the source material we're looking at. Alert emoji, killed over lashes, question mark, exclamation point, broken heart emoji. That is not a thoughtful demand for systemic accountability.
you think it's just about clicks?
I think it takes advantage of how digital platforms operate. I mean, there's a concept in psychology and media studies known as the bizarreness effect.
Right, where unusual things are remembered better?
Exactly. Algorithms thrive on cognitive dissonance. When you pair a deeply mundane, relatable detail like an appointment for eyelash extensions with extreme, lethal violence, it creates a highly shareable narrative.
People can't look away from it.
They really can't. They can't look away from the sheer absurdity of it. It goes viral not because it's a profound demand for justice, but because it trivializes a profound human tragedy into a clickbait headline.
That's a pretty harsh assessment of the community's intentions, don't you think?
It's just the reality of the medium. Building a public narrative on an unverified foundation, like an alleged argument over eyelashes, is exactly like diagnosing a patient based entirely on waiting room gossip before the doctor has run a single blood test. It fundamentally corrupts the process of finding the truth.
I understand the skepticism regarding algorithms, I really do. But you are glossing over the actual text of the post to make that point.
How so?
The author isn't presenting this as a definitive journalistic conclusion. They included caveats to frame their statements. The post begins with, if the allegations circulating on social media are true, and later reiterates, if the allegations are true.
But does putting the word if in front of a rumor actually neutralize the damage it causes?
It signals to the reader that this is part of a collective sense-making process. Look, when sudden violence erupts in a neighborhood, people talk. They have to. To use your hospital analogy, yes, they are piecing together waiting room gossip. But they're doing it because the doctor has locked the door and refused to speak to the family.
Because the doctor is doing surgery. The police are doing an investigation.
Sure, but the community is working with what they have to build a narrative that allows them to process the trauma. There's a deep, innate psychological need to assign a cause to a tragedy.
I get that.
If a young mother can be killed completely at random, that means everyone is in danger all the time. But if she was killed over a specific dispute, even an absurd one like a lash appointment, it provides a localized cause and effect. It makes the world feel slightly less terrifying, slightly more predictable.
The problem with finding comfort in a fabricated cause and effect is that it anchors the public to a falsehood. It's called anchoring bias. When the poster writes, according to allegations widely shared online, the violence began after dispute during a lash appointment, and then casually admits authorities have not confirmed that motive, they are trying to have it both ways.
They're just reporting what the community is saying.
They are blasting a rumor to thousands of people while attempting to wash their hands of the responsibility for verifying it. And once the public is anchored to that lashes narrative, it becomes incredibly difficult to dislodge.
Even if it turns out to be wrong later?
Exactly. What if the truth of this incident has absolutely nothing to do with eyelashes? The public is now permanently attached to a false reality.
The alternative, though, is total silence. The alternative is waiting months, perhaps years, for a trial to conclude before the community is allowed to openly discuss what happened on their own streets.
But we have to look at the concrete consequences of that rough draft, though, because it actively interferes with the actual mechanism of justice. Let's talk about how unverified rumors physically hinder criminal investigations.
Okay, let's talk about it.
The viral spread of the lash appointment motive forces the Mobile Police Department to stop investigating and start playing public relations defense. They literally have to issue statements confirming that these claims have not been confirmed by law enforcement.
I grant you that police resources are finite, but addressing public concern is part of their job, isn't it?
It is, but the larger issue is what happens to the witnesses. There is a well-documented psychological phenomenon called the misinformation effect, pioneered by cognitive psychologists like Elizabeth Loftus.
Right, the malleability of memory.
Yes, memory is incredibly malleable. It isn't a video recording, it's a reconstruction. If a neighbor in that apartment complex heard a loud noise but didn't quite catch the words being spoken, their memory is essentially a blank slate.
And then they go on Facebook.
Exactly. They log onto social media an hour later and see a viral post claiming the argument was over eyelashes. Their brain can retroactively edit their memory. Suddenly, they genuinely believe they heard the word lashes before the gunshot.
Wow.
When citizen speculation saturates a community, it severely taints witness testimony. It muddies the waters and jeopardizes the very investigation that is supposed to secure justice for Chyna Hickman.
I certainly acknowledge the risk of witness contamination. I mean, the malleability of memory is a real investigative hurdle, and investigative integrity matters deeply.
It has to be the priority.
But I have to question the underlying assumption here. Does police efficiency automatically trump public awareness? Let's look at the reality of how the justice system operates, particularly for marginalized victims.
The reality in this specific case is that the system worked incredibly fast.
It did. The police arrested 29-year-old Kendrea Davis the day after the shooting. That is remarkably efficient.
So this system worked.
But do we honestly believe that arrest and the sustained attention on this case would remain in the public eye without the viral true crime framing, without the hashtag #MobileAL hashtag, without the community aggressively amplifying it?
I mean, yes, the police were already on it.
History is replete with cases of Black women whose official investigation stalled, lacked resources, or were quietly swept under the rug until massive public pressure forced the issue. The relentless pressure generated by social media ensures these cases cannot be ignored by the institutions meant to solve them. It acts as an insurance policy on the justice system.
I think the timeline of events completely contradicts that theory in this instance, though. The arrest happened on July 11th, a day after the tragic event. That was well before this massive social media groundswell reached its peak.
True, the arrest was fast.
The police did their job quietly, methodically, and relying strictly on facts. Generating public pressure is undeniably vital when a system fails or stalls. But injecting unverified rumors into an active case where an arrest has already been made doesn't generate useful pressure, it just generates chaos. We are confusing volume with value.
But is it just chaos, or is it a fundamental, historically earned lack of trust in the system's guarantee of standard objective procedure?
It can be both.
The community knows that an arrest is not a conviction. They know the procedural hurdles ahead. They also know that cases involving victims like Chyna often receive less media coverage and less institutional urgency as the months drag on.
But they're speculating on things that aren't verified.
The social media post isn't trying to usurp the police's forensic role. It's trying to keep the spotlight on the case. Democracy and public discourse are inherently chaotic. The friction between the community's demand for transparency and the police's need for secrecy, well, that's a necessary tension that keeps the system accountable.
If we are going to accept that chaos as a necessary tension, we have to examine the emotional cost of it. Because it is severe.
The emotional cost to who?
To the family. The social media post doesn't just speculate on the legal motive, it aggressively speculates on the emotional fallout based on that unverified motive.
I'm not sure I follow.
The author writes, if the allegations are true, imagine explaining to those babies that their mom never came home over lashes. I find the weaponization of that trauma deeply, deeply troubling.
Wait, how is acknowledging the children weaponizing the trauma? It's just highlighting the reality of the loss.
Because it leverages the active trauma of two motherless children for a poignant social media caption based on a premise, the lashes, that hasn't even been verified.
It's an expression of grief, though.
It creates unnecessary, highly publicized distress. It forces a grieving family to navigate not only their profound personal loss, but a viral, sensationalized narrative about their tragedy. A narrative that might be entirely false.
So they should just wait for a sterile press release?
Relying on objective restraint and official updates protects the family from this kind of emotional exploitation. You don't have to invent a dispute over eyelashes to recognize that a family is grieving.
I push back strongly on the idea that the community is inventing details to exploit the family. That's just overly cynical. The clinical advice to simply rely on official updates, it completely ignores human nature and how we process grief.
How so?
We do not process communal trauma through sterile press releases. The social media framing, where the author explicitly asks the reader to, quote, pray for Chyna's babies, pray for her loved ones, that provides a collective space for communal grieving.
But that grieving is built on a foundation of speculation.
You're demanding definitional precision in a moment of profound, agonizing loss. Does a strict adherence to facts and objective restraint strip the victim of her humanity in the public square?
Not at all.
By reducing her to the deceased in the 1,000 block of Anders Drive, the official record leaves absolutely no room for mourning the 23-year-old mother. The speculation, however flawed its factual details might be, is rooted in deep human empathy.
Empathy based on rumors?
When someone reads, "Imagine explaining to those babies that their mom never came home over lashes," the operative truth resonating with the reader isn't necessarily the lashes.
Then what is the operative truth, if not the facts of the case?
The operative truth is the senselessness of the violence. The operative truth is the devastating, irreplaceable loss of a mother. The specific details might be unconfirmed, sure, but the emotional truth resonates deeply.
I see what you're saying, but
It mobilizes a community to care about a woman who might otherwise be relegated to a single, easily ignored paragraph in a local newspaper. It demands that society look at the human being behind the police blotter.
look, empathy built on falsehoods isn't true empathy, it's projection. If you are mourning a narrative rather than the reality of what happened, you are serving your own need for a story. You're not honoring the victim.
That's a very rigid view of communal mourning.
I am certainly not suggesting we strip the victim of her humanity. I am suggesting that true respect for Chyna Hickman involves respecting the concrete reality of what happened to her, not the most sensational, highly shareable version of it.
But the official societal record has historically minimized the lives of marginalized people. The community is stepping in to correct that minimization.
And it is worth noting that the police also acknowledge the human element without crossing into speculation. The official statement says, "It is a deeply tragic situation for the victim's family and children."
It's barely a sentence.
It is brief, yes, but it doesn't invent an unverified pregnancy or a dispute over eyelashes to elicit a stronger emotional reaction from the public. Precision in language isn't the enemy of humanity, it is the protector of reality. When we blur the lines between fact and speculation, we aren't just risking the investigation, we are fundamentally altering the societal record of a real person's life and death.
I understand the danger of altering the record. I really do. But I look at the reality that without this surge of public discourse, without the hashtags and the shared grief, the societal record for many victims simply ceases to exist after the initial arrest.
It doesn't cease to exist, it moves to the courts.
In the public eye, it fades. The community isn't trying to deceive anyone. They are trying to connect with a tragedy that feels overwhelming, and they are using the fragmented pieces of information they have to ensure this young woman is not forgotten in the slow, sterile machinery of the legal system.
Well, as we draw this discussion to a close, my position remains that establishing the truth requires immense patience and a strict adherence to verified police facts. The integrity of the entire legal process, from the initial arrest of Kenadria Davis to a potential conviction, it depends on evidence, not algorithmic narratives. Allowing viral misinformation and citizen speculation to dominate the discourse threatens to derail the very justice we are all seeking.
And, well, while I agree that verified facts are undeniably vital for a conviction, my perspective is that the immediate, emotional, and even speculative response of the community via social media acts as a necessary counterweight to institutional silence.
Right.
It keeps the spotlight on the human cost, and it contextualizes the tragedy within broader systemic issues.
Despite our different frameworks for how information should be handled in the crisis, I think there is a profound point of convergence here. We both recognize the absolute tragedy at the center of this material.
Without a doubt.
A 23-year-old mother lost her life to violence, leaving 2 young children behind to navigate the world without her.
Absolutely. The loss is devastating, regardless of the lens through which we view the aftermath. And I think we both find mutual agreement with the final sentiment expressed by the social media poster themselves, which is that we must all hope that the full truth comes to light in court.
Indeed. This tragedy forces us to reflect on the highly complex ecosystem of modern information. Understanding an event of this magnitude fully often requires grappling with both the rigorous, sometimes frustratingly slow pace of official investigations and the rapid, deeply emotional surge of public discourse.
It is a really delicate balance. The true crime narratives that dominate digital spaces today will continue to interact with and sometimes directly collide against official legal proceedings.
Yeah, they will.
The challenge is finding a way for public outcry to demand accountability without compromising the mechanics of achieving it.
There is far more to explore regarding how true crime narratives and official legal proceedings interact in the digital age. We leave it to you, the listener, to decide for yourself the proper balance between relying on verified fact and engaging in public discourse. But remember, before you try to diagnose the collapse of the building, you have to decide whether you're going to look at the structural integrity of the steel beams or the urgent needs of the people who lived inside.